And now we're going to go to our Q&A time so that we can address some of your comments and questions.
So, Katerina, we do have one question that was in the Q&A piece, and it's I work as a teacher in a California state prison. I'm trying to move. We're required to deliver homework packets to inmate dorms and hand the packets directly to inmates, not through the mail. What if we are noticing officers around us not wearing masks, which is required? There's no social distancing with inmates. It's very difficult in that environment. What inner strategies can you suggest for how to deal with this stress when others are not taking precautions and putting ourselves at risk?
Okay, so it's the sense of helplessness that some people are abiding by the rules, so to speak, and some people are not. And what can you do? And boy, that's a tough one, because what can you do? So as a teacher, obviously, he or she cannot go to the. They don't have a personal authority to force rules. So it's, and I assume that person is wearing a mask themselves, presumably, correct?
That would be, yes.
Yeah, and I would like to hear from the whole team, by the way, because I certainly don't have all the answers. But the thing would be definitely that, okay, doing what you can, doing whatever you can, control the universe, obviously, and then having to make some decisions about whether you approach that person and ask them to follow the procedure and or not. So you have to kind of weigh, is it worth your while? Is it worth your while to confront, or do you not want to confront? Do you want to address the issue openly, or do you not? These are some things you have to think about. Do you have the energy to go to battle, so to speak? Do you think it's worth going to battle over or not? And I may think of something else too, but I'd say, first of all, do whatever you can to protect yourself. Any other thoughts from our team, from our panelists?
I think it kind of speaks to that whole change what you can. If you have a rapport with the security staff and you can go to them and talk to them directly, or talk to their immediate supervisor, said, you don't need to out them, but say, hey, I'm noticing some, lax practices on the floor. I'm really concerned about everyone working here. Is it something you can remind them about at briefing, or maybe you can issue another directive? There's a lot of things that you can do without doing a direct confrontation or outing somebody for not following policy if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation yourself. Jeff, what would you say?
I'm always a fan of, addressing things at the lowest level, which means, saying something. And you don't have to be disrespectful about it. I think it could just simply be, walking up to the person and saying, hey, guys, we kind of have to be the example here, and everybody needs to wear the mask and everything else. And most departments have a system set up where you can kind of report concerns, and you can just report it as a blanket concern and not, necessarily say this officer or that officer, but just say, hey, I was doing my job earlier and I noticed several officers not wearing their masks appropriately and different things like that. Because remember, everybody inside the prison is inside the prison, and we're all at risk, and we all should be taking those precautions. I don't like wearing my mask, but you know what? I do it. Unless I am in the office doing my work with my door closed, I have my mask on. I do take that alone time and shut my door so I can take it off. But when I'm out and about walking around with inmates and doing my other part of my job, then yes, I have my mask on. And honestly, I have forgotten a couple of times, and I've had non-custody staff say, hey, mask. And they'll just do it simply like that. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And I'll put it on. It's usually not a big deal.
So I had a couple of comments. One thing, it's the same when you're out in the public. There's a lot of people in the public that aren't wearing masks too. So if they're not wearing a mask, then you might just have to increase your social distance. That's one thing you can do within your control. just keep your distance if possible. If they're not going to wear their mask, then increase your social distance. The other thing to keep in mind is, and I'm not making excuses, there's probably just a lot of people that don't want to wear masks, but there are people out there who have medical reasons for not wearing a mask. And so we don't know the journey everybody else is on. So keep your distance, take care of you, try not to judge people too harshly. And I agree with everybody else. If it's reportable, it's reportable. Start at the lowest level, of course, and try to get people to comply.
Brent shared with us on chat. He said, I almost always address it with the staff and offenders. And he uses the phrase, I'm worried about you personally, and I don't want you to get sick. That's a beautiful way to approach it. And who can get upset with that, right?
Yeah, very nice, very nice. And I saw another comment come through. I just want to say that we are recording this conversation, this presentation, and we're going to be doing a little editing on it and preparing it, and we'll post the link on our site under trainings, under about training schedule, webinar schedule. It will be, and also to be in the correctional oasis. So you will be able to access it later on. If you think you want to see it again, watch it again. Yes.
We also had another comment followed by a question. Someone was saying that they established a telework practice back in March, which a lot of departments did. Mine did. So most of the non-uniform personnel have been working from home during this crisis. We're now looking at beginning to bring them back to the offices if they're comfortable doing so. So the question for everyone here, is there anything we need to do to prepare the uniform and non-uniform for this return? In particular, I'm concerned about any underlying anger the uniform personnel may have, believing we had to handle the tough work, they hung out at home in their sweats.
That is great.
Me, it was pajama pants, but some people did get their sweats on.
Yes.
And I can take a stab at that one just to kind of start off the answering piece. We also have that process going where I work. We have a lot of people that are telecommuting, and they telecommute, sometimes part of the week and then come to work part of the week. But if they are teleworking 100% of the time, the big thing is educating your staff as to what their job is. So for the custody staff who have to work day in, day out, multiple shifts a day, and just can't, they don't have that luxury of working from home, educating them on, what, their job is this. And whether they're here at work to do it or they're at home to do it, the job is still getting done. And I think that's the important piece, is involving them and explaining to them and educating them as to what that other job is and what it entails. Because a lot of our folks who are teleworking, some of it is our timekeepers who do a lot of the stuff online anyway. Even if they're at work, they're still in their little cubicle and they're doing their work on the computer. So whether they're at work or at home, it really doesn't matter so much. Some of our treatment folks, same thing. They do a lot of their computer stuff at home, and then they'll come into work a couple of days a week just to do their groups and do that kind of thing. So I think education is a key feature and a key component to that answer.
And if I may add something, I was talking to someone earlier this week who told me that she and some other people were talking about how much they hated working from home. She said to me the first day she went back to work, she cried with joy because she was back in her office so she could find things. She felt like grounded, and she was lost at home with her routine being messed up, with other people in the house. She absolutely hated it, and she felt disoriented and was way more stressed than if she did allowing her to go back to work. So there's another twist to it too. It's not all wine and roses, so to speak, just because you're at home. So and like, why waste energy making comparisons when, like Brent said earlier, we don't know what path people are on, and again, it would be a waste of energy for me. So I would say, don't waste it. Just welcome them back and wish everybody good health and work as a team and re-engage, because everybody has distress one way or another. It's not you get all the goodies and I get nothing. And yes, they are more exposed with the inmates in a unit being there, crammed together. Yes, absolutely. But you don't know what it's like for the other folks at home too. So pick your battles.
I think building on what Jeff says about the education piece, that's critical. One of the things that we are constantly working to improve within our department is communication. And actually, COVID has kind of pushed us to improve a lot of those communication lines. And within our department, we have a fairly small group of employees as a whole. So what they've done is shift some people to working from home in rotation because they don't want everybody sick at the same time. And we were told if we were working from home that the reason for us being there is so that we don't get sick. And then if the people inside the institution are suddenly hit with an outbreak, we can come in and fill in for them. So sometimes there's strategic ideas behind putting those people at home, not just because they wanted to go home and work. And like Katerina said, there's a lot of people that would really prefer to be at the institutions.
They're not favored children, yes.
Yep. And that sentiment was echoed by one of the other attendees, is having those that can work from home do so. It also reduces the risk of those who are on the front line, and it does. The fewer people we have coming into work, it does reduce our risk. So, so there's another question. It's what do I tell students who reach their breaking point, work up the courage to reach out for help, and are disbelieved and or proverbially kicked in the teeth by every helper they try? There's family, supervisors, etc.
Students, do we meet inmates in like educational classes? What students are we talking about? Or are we talking cadets? What are we talking about students?
I'm going to say this person might be an instructor at the facility and talking about officers who are being taught.
So the students are the kids. Okay, the administrators. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so wow, so that's where people have to be like cheerleaders. People have to be like cheerleaders to build morale. And so can you read us again the last part, because I was trying to think who students were. The last part of the question.
So it's those who finally work up the courage to reach out for help, and they are either disbelieved and or proverbially kicked in the teeth by every person they ask for help.
Whoa. Okay, so this is the whole reason why we have our courses, Courage, Fatigue, and Fulfillment, True Grit, and whatever else we have. Because about the brutal culture that eats their young and kills their wounded, right? I mean, it's like, whoa, come on. So we need a lot more education about like, what are you trying to accomplish? I mean, this is so destructive, tearing people down for having the courage to step up. No wonder they isolate, and then they think the only solution is going to kill themselves. That kind of attitude of not allowing people to be human. And so the one thing that COVID-19 has done is shove it in our face how human we are, how vulnerable, how frail we are. And maybe those people are very irritable and angry, and they have bought into this mindset that you cannot acknowledge being human. It's like, I'm sorry, but you are. So so we need to have enough people raised up that are more in a peer support mode, not babying people, but saying, yep, this sucks right now, and this is a huge challenge. And yes, I get it that you're scared and your kids are afraid of you when you come home and whatever. I get it. And what can you do to help the situation and see if they can problem solve some, but offering that compassionate ear and the validation, and that by itself is a solution right there, where people exhale and say, okay, somebody heard me. So I guess I would tell somebody, like, you have no idea how much this could have crushed that person, and really, 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 was that necessary, and really, are we that tough? But have them call me. Whatever. I mean, I'm joking here, obviously, but it's really, it's sad because it's brutal and it's merciless, and it isolates people.
Can I just add one thing too, maybe for the person who wrote that question, to encourage the people that are getting kicked in the teeth, just don't give up. Keep searching for that one person that is going to listen and be there for them, because there's enough out there now. And as more and more people are becoming aware of Katarina's work and correctional fatigue and some of the coping skills and the things that we're trying to impart out there, there's going to be somebody somewhere that will listen and be a good ear, and just don't give up. I mean, it takes a lot of perseverance sometimes to find the one person that you can talk to in our business, because we're all stressed to the max, and we can't always find that right person until, you know, might take a lot of times. I can certainly empathize there.
And it's so tough when you have a bunch of people have been almost like brainwashed in that John Wayne mentality, that you ride off in the sunset, and it takes a lot of repetition and a lot of time working on people to deprogram and reprogram the way of thinking. And it takes sometimes a tragedy, like somebody they thought was a top level, totally functional person killing themselves. And there's like, people wake up, like, what happened? Oh yeah, we didn't know that he was struggling with clinical depression for the last 5 years because he covered it so well. He faked it so well. And then everybody's shocked, like, oh yeah, they went and shot themselves and that's it. It's like, no, we need to be able to have a place where people can be real and open up without being ridiculed, without being rejected, without being bullied. We need to have that. Otherwise, you have more casualties and a very unhealthy culture. And when you are hurting, then you have nowhere to go because you were the one who was putting everybody down for asking for help. So anyway, obviously that's my soapbox in a big way. And it really hurts that it's still out there floating around, that kind of, based on the lack of understanding, that kind of mental set. It's really truly based on lack of understanding of how humanity operates. It's not intentionally cruel, it's just unintentionally very destructive.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a lot of unfortunate. It is highly unfortunate, and yeah. So to me, just echoing what Brent and Katarina have already said, is just encouraging that person to find someone who is willing to listen, whether it be EAP, if your organization has that ability has that program in place. That's always a good place to start. And then, you know what, honestly, you bringing that question forward shows me that you have a compassionate heart and might be that one to really listen to that person. But again, just remember, every time you listen to someone, you're taking on that secondary trauma. So you're taking on a little bit about what they are going through as well. So you're going to also need to have that person that you can talk with to kind of get that out of you and release all that extra stress that you're taking on. So
wonderful. And say also have them write us at the vent line at desertwaters.com. And soon, like I said, we'll have the 800 number for people to send texts. Because maybe will be a safe place for them until there's another one in their facility or in their office. And so let's give them options.
So
one of the other comments we got was kind of a little bit of a counterbalance there. It says that I found that there's been a lot more cooperation between custody and non-custody staff at our institution. This person is a correctional educator and has had a few officers who are now struggling to homeschool their children. And they say sometimes it just helps to reach out and develop a little understanding to connect to one another. So sometimes, like you guys all said, just being that person that took the time to listen for a little bit can make all the difference for somebody. They don't need you to solve their problem. They just need to be heard.
Yep. And we have another question. A supervisor at a max prison with about 1,200 employees. I have noticed morale and camaraderie are at a very low point. It's the best way to rebuild that pre-COVID level while still maintaining social distancing. And Cecile, I'd like you to start this off with what some of the folks at your department are doing, meeting an hour before shift.
Yeah, so we were talking recently at work, and some of the line staff, because I work in an office, but they spend a lot of time in my office somehow. Everybody ends up there. They stop before shift. We have one shift, our 1 to 9 shift, comes in like an hour before shift, and they hang out in the parking lot. They just park their vehicles at the back of the parking lot in a group. They put down their tailgates. They bring their lunch. They sit there. They visit. Our morning shift or our overnight shift when they get off in the morning have been taking time to check in with each other, because overnight you can make phone calls, but nobody moves around a whole lot. So they hang out in the parking lot, and some mornings they go and have breakfast together, have coffee. Just that few minutes, maybe an hour, half an hour of let's just decompress, let's talk, let's joke, let's laugh, has been really huge. We've had some trauma that they've had to work through, and I think a lot of them, this almost drew them closer together. So it's not something that requires a whole bunch of extra resources. Sometimes it's just that idea and that encouragement that, hey, if you guys want to get together, go, in the parking lot, go down to a park now that the parks are opening up. I live in a city that's got lots of good outdoor spaces, so they go down and go fishing. Just simple things like that.
So can I just pile onto that a little bit? I mean, when you talk about 1,200 employees, you're not going to get 1,200 people in the parking lot all at once, but you could break it down maybe to your unit or your team inside, and maybe the 12 of us are going to meet here in the parking lot after shift or before, and just have a little morale session, checking in on each other. And maybe not all 1,200 together, but in small groups and manageable groups, we go to the park, or we build our morale in little places rather than tackle the whole thing at once.
Yep. And that's part of what, my section of the material was all about, is that's what we do. That's what my team does. My peer support team. We go out, we go every unit, we go out in teams, and what's the most often forgotten about shift at work? It's that overnight shift. It's that graveyard shift. So there were 2 of us that was the shift we volunteered for. I do that in addition to my regular duties, but I am glad to do it. And the amazing piece to me that I'll share with you is when we first started doing it, there was a fair amount of stress. There was a fair amount of people that were struggling, and and after a few weeks went by, we started noticing a shift, and it was kind of amazing. I think it was about the 3rd or 4th week we went out, and all of a sudden they all start asking us, well, how are you guys doing? How is this affecting you? You guys are coming in on your own time, and you guys don't work this shift. What are you guys doing? How is this working for you guys? And I said, you know what? My partner and I, we just looked at each other and we said, we are happy to give up a few hours of sleep to come in and talk with you guys and just to have a good time. And that's what we do. And I'm telling you what, it has huge benefits. It's not the cure-all, but it is that little step in the right direction. And that's the big thing.
Beautiful.
So,
We also have a nice comment. Your Desert Waters newsletter has been super helpful. I noticed that their training department regularly shares it out via email, and that the lieutenant or sergeants add words of encouragement. It helps for all staff to see that we all have difficulties and the work environment doesn't help. So knowing others struggle too, and that there are some avenues for help. Absolutely. When you're in pain or you're struggling, knowing that someone else has been there and survived it is huge.
yep.
It's huge, and it can be a real bonding experience.
It's lovely that the sergeant or lieutenant add an encouragement, so there's a personal touch. It's not just our own issue every month, but it's also them adding to it. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Buying into it and showing that they're buying into it, their actions. Good.
And there's another comment, and I think it was because it said, "Thanks for the advice. I'll reach out to the EAP in the facility and see if they can get some people to walk around a little bit." That I would encourage you to reach out to are your local law enforcement chaplains. You can see by my shirt, I am a law enforcement chaplain. I was certified through an academy over here, and that's what I do. I work directly with the staff, and I'm the chaplain on our local CISM team. But I was recruited by a local law enforcement chaplain who I knew. And it's been amazing. When before I got my training, he would come into the facility. He would be the one to reach out to our staff. They are so happy to do it because we're all brothers. We're all brothers and sisters. I mean, we all work in this thing. We all put in that uniform. We all put that badge on. I don't care if you're in uniform or not in uniform. You still go into a prison. You work. And the law enforcement chaplains are very willing to come in and lend that extra hand.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
So there is one that was just shared. It says, "I lead an education department in a correctional facility. So classes have been closed for a couple of months and different staff teleworking different ways. We've had a daily check-in call each morning. Many staff have noticed that being able to have a daily update and being able to connect and ask questions regularly has been valuable." Absolutely. As we gear up to start opening up programs again and have people on grounds every day, I'm wondering if you have other suggestions for continuing to connect regularly when we are separated over 5 yards in different areas and cannot meet all together. I like the idea of meeting in the parking lot before or after work. So you have a unique situation here. Is right now with most of your folks being off, they have the ability to connect on a regular basis via telephone or something to that effect. So yeah, I'll throw this open to the panel.
Well, I don't work inside or probation parole, but I want to say that if we could transfer some of those practices from here on out, as part of the way they do things, like you used to have roll call in a lot of places, and that went away for several reasons in a lot of places. So if it could be that kind of checking in together, we really need to know how everybody else is doing, and also to share information, so that connecting serves those two purposes: connection, that emotional need for social closeness, and then information. So everybody's on the same page. If you could maintain that somehow, either via email, via phone call, wish you could do a conference call, or meet someplace, but no, you said 5 yards, so you cannot do that. If you could do it somehow, even if it's in 2 doses, 2 groups, I would say maintain it. Have some good things that come out of COVID-19, and that would be one of them. Better practices for information dissemination and a sense of connection, because we talked about in our courses how important connection is, social connecting with other staff in healthy ways. And sending out some kind of, like, maybe daily or weekly, some kind of like little newsletter about events, or a little compendium, like a summary of certain things to be done or have been done, and sending it out to everybody in one written document, an email probably would be another option. And if daily is too much, weekly.
And I know one of the things that our education department does, and they're not separated over 5 yards, just 2 yards. And sometimes they'll all go to lunch together, or they'll shut class down for a day, and it'll be staff meetings all day, and they won't necessarily be talking about just the education piece, but just checking in with each other and doing those little things. I mean, it's sometimes thinking outside the box to what is possible, not necessarily what's just practical.
And I think if you're looking at something like that and can frame it as staff wellness, because it really does contribute to your mental well-being, reduces your stress, all those kind of pieces at work. I know within our department that is a big push right now, is that staff wellness is critical to our agency's success. They're seeing that, they're putting efforts and resources there. I know that other departments are as well. It's becoming a topic that is talked about a lot more, as we've seen some alarming statistics with corrections officers and their health and well-being deteriorating over time. Katerina, of course, you've been trying to get people to listen to this for years, and they're finally getting it. They're finally seeing that there is some need for this. So if you can phrase it in those ways, you might get some support from supervisors or admin as well. They might support that and say, hey, I see a value in, like Jeff said, shutting down classes for half a day, because of the benefits of staff wellness are going to return in much, much more than they're going to lose in that half a day.
Yeah. Remember, I mean, I'm grateful you brought up the question for this simple fact that if you work inside a prison, you're exposed. Bottom line, you're exposed to all the muck and the mire that everyone else is exposed to. Maybe you're not the hands-on person that the officer is, but you're still exposed. You're still there. You're still part of it. You know, you're the one that makes the phone call. Maybe you're the one that gets the help, or, you know, whatever it may be. The fact is you're exposed, and the fact is wellness is important. So, yeah, thinking outside the box, hugely important.
If I may add, one of my concerns has been that because of the COVID chaos and the shortages of staff and the budgets being slashed, this, that, and the other, my concern is that staff wellness will take a back seat again and will not be considered as essential or necessary. And at the same time, how can you run facilities or offices when staff are not well? How can you expect a focus on rehabilitation when staff are not well? It's impossible. Go ahead if you have any other questions.
So at this time, we actually don't have another question posed. So I'll ask any of the attendees, if you have anything else that you want to bring forward, please send those through chat lists. And if not, then do our members have any closing statements they want to offer?
No?
I would just say hang in there and keep up the good work. We think about everybody on the inside all the time. We've been there. We know the hard work, and you're in our thoughts and prayers every day.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And my deal is do what you can, do what you need to do to take care of yourself and your family. They are the most important people in your life right now. Remember that you have two families. You have work family and your home family, so take care of both of them. If you are that one that can reach out and just talk and listen to people, you know, that's what God has gifted me to do, and I enjoy doing it so much. But the person that I can talk to offload all the stuff that I take additionally. So if you are that person who goes out and listens to others, make sure you have that one person or two people that you can talk to as well to get rid of that secondary, that vicarious trauma that you are taking on, because it's just stress upon stress upon stress. So take care of yourselves is very, very important. Thank you all so much for joining us, and bless you all.
Yeah, thank you. And Cecile, do you want to share anything before I wrap it up?
No, it's just been a real blessing to be involved in this today. I hope that we've brought something to someone, a nugget that they can take away that can change their circumstance, because that would be my dream. And my dream is that we get through this COVID. We find a new way that is not like the old way, but much better. Show yourself and everyone around you some empathy and understanding. As Brent said, we don't know what everybody else is going through. Take care of you and remember who you impact. That's about all I got.
Yes.
That's a lot. That's a lot. If you can take one thing from what we said today and start doing it on a regular basis, you'll be ahead of the game. Share it. Check in again about the link. really appreciate you taking time, and it felt like a family and a gathering, and I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we stepped out there and did it, because there is a need and there is a hunger. So thank you. We'll be hopefully back, and hope to see you again down the road. Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Bye.